marriage period is different. Every marriage is different. So once you get the nick of what works for y'all, again, which is consulting with God, you can take what you did see. Maybe some things did work from on them, not everything, because again, they're submissive with, again, different than my submissive, So I think my concept of marriage is two working together to reach one goal.
That's good.
And it, of course, following God first, let God lead y'all. But then you be like, and then but it's also how do you get there? How do you get there? Because when you're young, my husband and I been together, 12 years. So, it was in the beginning, he didn't know God, I knew God. I'm not about to change what I feel and what I was believed and how I was raised for something a man believed, because again, society and man has gotten it to where marriage is not honorable.
Yeah.
So that's my look on marriage, my concept.
Okay. I had a quick question, just out of curiosity. Okay, you made a statement saying that I'm not going to change what I believe for a man. Now, I'm so happy to hear that your husband, you say he's now a believer, but I think this is a common avenue or a common thing that happens, going into our relationships. So I just want to, if you don't mind, we use your statement to make a point here. My first question is, did you know that he was an unbeliever before you married him?
No, he believed. It was just his concept. Like, okay, for example, his family believed in Christ and stuff, but they didn't believe in tithing. So when I would tithe, like I literally, like we were together in high school. For those that don't know, I left home at 15. But so I stayed with him, his mom, and I had a job. My husband went to school and he had a job. His mom had a job. So my checks would be small because I also was in sports. So if my check was only $120, I'm tithing and offering $20, and then and live off 2 weeks of $100. Of course, he took care of me and stuff. So he would always say, like, why do you do that? Why do you do that? And his mom was like, well, Sean, I'm just saying, the more money, they would say things like that. And I told him, I said, well, because I was raised in a house of, and I'm sorry, I'm not here. But I was raised, my mom had 6 of us, and then she always had my cousins over. And if my mama had $10 or somebody gave us $1, she made us type 10 cents. So I didn't know that when I met him. Of course, you figure out people as you go, and learn people as you go on, with life with them. So no, it's not that he doesn't believe. It's just certain things they just chose to take how people do. How we do. I can say him how we do. We take and choose sometimes what we want to take from the Bible.
Yeah. Thank you for answering that. So when you say I'm not going to change what I believe for a man, basically the way you were raised for a man. So it wasn't just a man, it was your husband. So what was it about that? I mean, why do you believe that was the correct approach?
So first he was my boyfriend, and then he was my husband. And then I think what changed was the fact that he thought, I didn't bash him. It was simply, I'm not going to change. I'm not going to budge. I'm not trying to budge you. I'm not trying to change you, so don't change me. So it was simply, I think him seeing literally the blessings and just, how life was going about for us, even though we were yet married. I think still he was like, okay, wow, well, let me try this thing. Let me try to pray a little bit at night. So we would start to pray together. And I'm like, okay, and then he would say, well, babe, what does this mean? I'm like, okay. But I think it was just him seeing me not budge and be like, stick to my roots. And I literally will instill that in anybody I meet. Like, don't change you for anyone. If it's a nasty way, that's different. Definitely change. But if it's something is positive, literally it's from God and stuff like that, and you didn't put your own twist on his word, stay rooted.
So what is your view on submission?
Submission, okay, so.
That's good. I'm going to into that.
My view on submission. So, for those who don't know, I used to be very dominant. I'm still dominant, very dominant. And I'm sure that it's from,
more humble now.
But I'm humble, right? It's a difference. But I'm a very dominant woman. And I'm sure that's from seeing my mom raise me and stuff like that, even though I had male figures in my life. So to have met my husband, who's also dominant, and then we have dominant children, you know, I think just seeing how once we had our son is when I really, so we were together, and at this time, probably 8 years. Once we had our son is what made me really, okay, bow down. And what I mean by bow down is, you ask me to do something, you ask me, you know, it can be simple, and it be the simple things. Men like simplicity. Just as women do, men like the same thing. So you simply, babe, take my clothes out, have it ready for me when I get home. Put my drawers on the shower, you know. Can you count my money for me? No problem. But before, it was so hard for me because I was still in I would say, immature, because I think also I still had the mindset of, okay, I'm married so that my kids don't be bastards. Mm-hmm. And I'm married because I saw it growing up. And I'm married because it's what God said in the Bible, versus being married and doing what he said in the Bible. And like God said in Proverbs, I can't tell you exactly what chapter, but like he said, a man is appreciated when he goes to the car wash or something, you know, I'm paraphrasing, of course, but a man is more appreciated when he goes to a car wash because his wife is loving him at home the proper way. So when my man leaves this house, he got his lunch. He have his breakfast. I'm gonna feed him, you know, behind closed doors too. But my man is set. He ain't doing nothing, even though it's a mindset. My man is set for the day.
And it makes him feel like a king.
It makes him feel like a king.
So what was it about? I'm sorry.
Just doing the simple things.
Okay, go ahead, Mel.
Yeah, I love it. And you mentioned it was once you guys had your son that was a shift for you. What brought that shift for you?
I think seeing how at a young age, how my son was like only 1 year old. I wouldn't say 1 year old. My baby was a few months. And just seeing how already he's very like, it's hard to explain without seeing him, but he's very like keen to everything. He's very keen to everything. He's very like specific. He's very I've seen a lot of attributes of my husband, which I like. And it was like, okay, well, my husband is way, and now I have a son, even though me and my husband already had a daughter 5 years prior. It's like, okay, well, you raising your daughter to be a dominant woman in a marriage. What's cute about that? You raising your son, because he sees his daddy hand, and literally my husband hands and foot me. I barely got to walk. You know, if he can walk for me, he would. And you seeing raising your son and see this, yeah, you still got an nasty attitude by something stupid. You know? So seeing my son, I don't know, I guess it was the fact that when my son was in my stomach, also God gave me who he was and who he was going to be. I think that also what did something, but it's really, like I said, when he came out of my stomach is what made me, okay, do better.
But I definitely thank you for that. And I want to kind of use that as an example of what we're looking at in our day with our culture. If anyone disagrees, but I think our culture is a matriarchy as we speak here today. We're primarily led by our moms. As for the last 60 years, we can go down the line of the way things are, what happened. You know, I think it was an intentional thing done by the government to depower us, in my opinion. That's just what we are. So in turn, our women, our daughters have shifted. You know, if you guys notice, women are leading, you know, and our women are having these amazing careers. Our women are these entrepreneurs and go-getters, and our men are lackadaisical, you know, and our men are not as powerful as I'm sure Mr. David Scott is and men of that generation were. But I say that to say that shift in power is the way we view marriage and go into marriage as well. Meaning our women are like a tree planted by the rivers of water. They should not be moved. You know, they have this mindset that there's nothing I would, like, a man has to adjust to me. I'm not going to adjust for this man. I have this life. I built myself up. He has to come into my world. There's no, the Bible does say submit to one another, but when it specifically talks to the wife to submit to the husband, I think women start to see the ramifications of that once they start to have children and once they start to have that son, where they realize, I don't want my son to be taught to the way I talk to my husband.
That's right.
I think at some point we have to adjust how we view each other. Paul made it pretty clear, what men want. Men, we value respect. Wives, respect your husband, honor your husband. Women, y'all value love. Husband, love your wives as Christ loved the church. That's pretty simple. So for a woman to go into a relationship saying, there's things I won't do for you, there's things I just won't budge on, I think that sets that man up to either submit to her. And once a man submits to her initially, it's going to take a while before that shift in power, because if anyone doesn't view this marriage thing as a male headship thing, I think we really have an issue.
I was adopted. So my father was born 1907. My mother was born 1909. They were literally coming out of the Victorian age. They were teenagers during the Depression. So I come from a patriarchal society where my father was everything. And my mother raised me. She put all of her effort into him, and he provided for us. I came from a very highly educated, functional family. The Bible says that God is the head of Jesus. Jesus is the head of the man is the head of the woman. And I also grew up in the Virgin Islands, which is a culture outside the United States, where you go to Eastern or Asian cultures, a lot of American women would look at those women and say that that's crazy. They're like slaves with their husbands. But there's often no pulling apart. There's unity. So the concept is, it's not co-captains, it's captain and first mate. It's not co-captains, captain and first mate. Now that's the structure that God set up. But within that, we now have to deal with the reality of what we're with and in society.